The biggest issue in my lifetime was the overuse of chlorine. No one understood it. Billy Bob, Jimbo, the operator, usually a very good wrench turner, can get stuff done. They mow the lawn, they handle the filter media, they do all kind of things. But I think that in the past you just threw chlorine at it. Well, treating with chlorine creates total trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids, and that's a known carcinogen, and I'd say it's been responsible for a lot of cancer in our country. And we're getting a handle on it, but I think it's one of the biggest issues facing water authorities today.
Welcome to the Make Water Work podcast, where we dive into the people, ideas, and innovations shaping the future of water. I'm your host, Isaac Pellerin, and alongside my co-host, Megan Glover, the founder of 120 Water, we bring you insights from hundreds of incredible conversations we've had over the past 9 years with inspiring and energizing leaders in the water industry. Each week, we share those stories and conversations with entrepreneurs, community champions, and innovators who are making water work for everyone. Whether you're a water professional, a curious innovator, or simply passionate about our most precious resource, this podcast is for you. Let's get started. Dave is easily one of my favorite people.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, there's so much that when I think about Dave, I just think about how generous he's been in his ability to bring us connections, share his knowledge. He has got a great depth of knowledge in a long career in water from the lab side, and he's not afraid to share that.
Yeah, he's not. And for those who are listening or watching and may not know, Dave was a co-founder of 120 Water, and I think people always, because I was the operator, right? It's like, well, you don't know anything about water. And I was like, well, actually, Dave taught me a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And I visited and learned the laboratory process from beginning to end, learned the LIM system beginning to end. And I really credit Dave for building that important laboratory services muscle that so many of our customers have found as an efficient way, to do a lot of their water quality testing. So just excited to hear from him and introduce him to a lot of folks who may not know his connection to 120 Water.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, Make Water Work podcast, where we celebrate people innovating and serving the water industry day in and day out. And who do we have for us today, Isaac?
Oh, we have someone of 120 Water legend. This is Lore. What's the foundational story? So we're going to the Wayback Machine, and I'm real excited that Dave Kohl has joined us today. Dave's had an incredible influence on 120, not just because he's a founder, but also because of the depth of knowledge of water utilities, labs, sampling. So I think we're going to go as deep as we can in 30 or so minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Dave, welcome to the podcast. Friend and
Thank
co-founder.
You, Megan, Isaac, appreciate it.
Yeah. So we always like to kick off with the same question. Can you tell us how water found you?
I graduated from Penn State in 1983 with a degree in soils. Went to work for an engineering firm, and I had more chemistry than any of the engineers. We were setting up a lab for the coal mining industry, strip and demine. Couldn't find a good lab. So I set the lab up basically, I think about 1984. That's how I got into water. So did a few other things in between, and then came back and bought that lab in the late 90s.
Yeah, and that lab became CWM Environmental.
Yes, CWM.
Can you tell us a little bit about that operation and what you guys specialized in, and before you sold, kind of what you built that into?
So we were at the tail end of the coal industry, mid to late 80s. It was shrinking. The lab was not growing, and made a conscious decision to get into water systems, drinking water, and then eventually wastewater. recognizing the compliance issues that faced water systems, we were able to help them with regulatory processes and testing, which eventually led us into sewage plants, industrial stuff. Then we got into operations and maintenance of plants. We bought trucks and filter presses and pumps and, world's dirtiest jobs. That was kind of half about what we did. So we not only did laboratory work, we did, we did some of I call it the blue collar stuff. I'm a licensed operator. I've been licensed for 20 years, a licensed both sewage and water. And I think when I left, we had about 12 operators that ran right around 100 plants.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was for your lab operation. That was in Katanning, Pennsylvania, and then you expanded into other regions as well.
Yeah, we bought a lab in Cleveland, Garfield Heights, and then we purchased a lab in Pottsville where they make Yingling beer.
Ooh, that's perfect.
Matter of fact, we get Yingling beer bottles as sample bottles. At least we did. I think they still do.
I love that.
I do too. That's a fun fact. That's a fun fact.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So many folks listening to this podcast might not realize kind of the depth of 120 Water's laboratory services network. And Dave, I credit you and to give you all the credit in really helping set that laboratory network up. And just I'll kind of briefly talk about what that is. And then Dave, I'd love to turn it to you to say how you got involved in 120 Water. But, at 120 Water, we started as a direct to consumer, right? Laboratory testing kit, right? And, it was great service for the end user, but logistically really hard for labs, right, to do on a one-off basis. So I spent many of hours and days in the CWM laboratories, both Cleveland and in Katanning, to really understand the laboratory process, the intake process, how we could combine technology and kits into the existing lab operations. And Dave and team literally helped us kind of stand up that practice. And now 120 Water is really able to serve every single crevice of the U.S. from our laboratory services partnership and network across many different parameters. So hats off to you, Dave. And I'd love to kind of, from your point of view, tell your story about how you got involved in 120 Water.
Chris Baggett, a mutual friend of all of ours. I've known him since I was about 10 years old. Made a fortune selling exact targets. Called me and said he wanted to start a water testing business for the residential market for the Mrs. Smiths of the world. And he had a woman named Megan that he wanted to have run it. And I said, okay. And that was in March or thereabouts of 2016. Megan and I worked together quite a bit. I saw it as an outlet to provide testing for CWM. And in the process, I think Megan and I stumbled on the fact that water systems needed help with their residential customers, particularly their lead compliance and all compliance, as a matter of fact. But we took it from the consumer to the water authority. I'd say that was a big change in 120, and that's when we really started to take off. And then Megan and company, Isaac and Abby and gang took it and absolutely expanded the capability of the software and the regulatory compliance, the lead line replacements, and so on. So I think it's been a pretty nice success story. You're giving me way too much credit, but I do. Thank you. But you guys did all the work.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I love about the story from where it started, and we find ourselves still on this theme today, is just the need was to provide a resident, a consumer with, hey, is my water safe to drink? How do I get that transparency? How do I understand the quality of my water? And from there, it just always having a lens of like, how do we help communicate to the end consumer what's in the water, even if that's by way of helping water utilities do that better, or manage the volume of that kind of thing. And so I think, while you're saying, hey, you guys did all the work, you were super instrumental. Like, it is very difficult for a brand new company to get a water utility to say, hey, I'll take a chance on something new. And so it's really important to have those established relationships and authority. And when I think about one of our first customers in Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority, that was you brokering, leveraging that trust that you had built with that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I think it was just another avenue to get to the consumer. We just went through the water authority. It helped the labs because he gave us more of a consistent volume versus onesie twosies, which are difficult to run. But yeah, it turned out to be a really really good thing.
Yeah, but he's also not giving himself enough credit for being an excellent operator and understanding the business development aspect of this space. And I think that's where we also learned a lot from Dave and how he interacts with his utilities that he serves. And you got to show up. You got to put the FaceTime in, because that's how you get the opportunity to bring in new technologies, to a customer, right? And that was all. I mean, like, Dave, probably up until the day you retired, I'm putting that in air quotes, you were probably still attending city council meetings on behalf of your customers or something like that. So
yeah, it's well, thank you. Yeah, we and I'm retired now almost a year. It'll be a year in about a week.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Yeah.
Well, and I remember one of our first events. Shortly after I joined, we went down to Katanning, and Dave, I think you filled the room maybe with 10 or so operators, and we were just showing them early versions of, kind of getting voice of the customer. How do we understand as where we're going, what we're building, new software, how does this look? And so you were always helping to fill the room and give us, our customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we'll hear directly from them.
Yeah.
Customer focus group, I would call it.
Yeah.
We brought in about maybe 10 customers.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about you have a very tenured career in water as a successful business owner and just, water operator. What do you see as the most amount of change? Like, what do you think has changed the most in your career? Looking back,
I think there's three things. One is regulatory compliance has done nothing but increase. There are more analytes and testing added, more frequent testing. There's a consolidation going on in both the lab business and the water industry. We're seeing economies of scale because water authorities are gobbling up, neighboring water authorities. It makes sense. You have the resources to handle much larger systems. So I think that's been a trend I've been observing, and I don't know where it'll end, but there is a consolidation both in the lab business and the water authority.
Yeah, that is a key theme that a number of folks have brought up on the podcast in terms of the issue around consolidation, and in some instances, the consolidation, particularly of the rate base, is going to be the only way that these water use systems are going to be able to fund a lot of these infrastructure projects that are also coming down, right? In addition to the regulatory pressures. So
yeah, you bring up a good point. There's a private sector too, which I guess we should, it's the American Water, et cetera. There's a lot of big outfits that are privatizing and paying huge sums of money for water authorities, and usually the Associated Sewage Authority generally.
Yeah, yeah. So on the environmental laboratory space, when we were raising money, we got this question all the time. They were like, what are sensors going to do for the lab testing? Are sensors going to make the need for laboratory testing go away? I'm curious, Dave, I don't know if I ever asked you that question. What's your take on that?
It's a good question. So I think they'll, just like other industries, there will be an amount of, what I'll call operational testing that will be done by, remote or sensors or inline systems. I think there'll always be a need for some sort of confirmatory, like a medical, confirmatory testing, or a true EPA approved test. So I think they'll still have that. I do believe automation is going to reduce, the average operator is my age, right? There's not a bunch of 30-year-olds scrambling to get into the sewage business. So your labor pool is limited, and there'll be more automation. I absolutely think so. Will it completely eliminate testing? I don't think. I think you'll have to have somebody that can analyze and do the data and know what it means.
Hmm. Yeah. The pace of change at the regulatory space moves way slower than the innovation around sensors. And there always seems to be a risk factor of like changing a protocol is a big deal.
Yeah.
And so updating that, so there's a lot of need, kind of to your point, of that regulatory testing, confirming that the other instruments that we're using are performing to the standards that that regulators require.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And how often, or even do regulators go back and re-review methods? Like after a method becomes written into the law, I mean, is there even like a process to go back and say, hey, there's newer methods out, we should update the rule to accommodate that? Because some of these methods are very old, right? Or been around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the ICPMS, when I was in school, we didn't have ICP or ICPMS. So yeah, I mean, yes, there's a disconnect between the EPA, approved methods and some of the technology today. And a lot of that needs to be reviewed, and I think we talked about this multiple times, but an E. coli test is 6-hour hold time with a 2-hour leniency for driving, when total coliform, your drinking water, is 30 hours. Why is poop water 8 and drinking water 30? One, and two, are those real? Like, how hard and fast are they? Those are some things you could look at. AA graphite furnace is 60s technology. That's the stuff I ran. ICPMS is phenomenal, way better for lead. Those are some things that need to be. Yes, I think to your point, the regulatory community is way behind. Yeah, and look at the software when we upload data and stuff. I mean, you guys are light years beyond what a lot of these states are using. It lags behind the industry.
Yeah. Which, opens the opportunity, right? For companies like 120 and being able to provide that middle layer of efficiency and whatnot, for the operators that want that. You mentioned the average operator being your age, Dave, which I don't think is old at all, but can you talk about like that dynamic of how that's going to affect the industry if we've got, operators retiring such as yourself and not a talent pool? Like what is that going to do for the industry?
Well, I mean, I don't have the answer to that, but it's going to be an issue, right? And automation should be able to help offset some of that. I think the reality is you're going to have to make the job more desirable to get younger people into it. And I'm 65, I'll be 66 in a week. The guys like me are going to be retiring, right? That's the retirement age. And there's going to be a lot of guys retiring and gals in the next year or so, right? So the industry is going to face a real upheaval. I don't think they're prepared for it.
Yeah.
Is that one of those things too that kind of to our earlier conversation is going to force and drive more consolidation? Or what risks does that put water systems at?
Well, I think, the company like 120, one of the reasons we had success was we could get kits in much less expensively than sending a guy or gal out in the field for 6-8 hours, right? I mean, I don't know what the cost back then, but $200 an hour, roughly, vehicle, fuel, missed sample, have to go back. You lose that person. They're not able to go and handle the basin or the filter media. They're busy getting samples, right? So you freed up an FTE. I think there'll be more of that. One of the things that's a side note is the PADEP. I was on a board with them for several years. One of their concerns is with the consolidation of labs, there won't be any small labs around to help rural water systems. So again, I think a company like 120, that's a no brainer because, one, you're going to have nobody to do it. And two, you won't have, nobody internally to do it either. Right. So you don't have a company to send it to, and you don't have a labor force to do it. So it'll be consolidated. And I think it's going to continue to facilitate the growth of companies like 120.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So, because we talk about the constraint of labor, but you add the constraint of access to labs, and that does affect rural America, right? I mean, one of the things, Dave, we launched our PFAS sampling offering later this year, and partly because a lot of these smaller communities that had not had to do their UCMR 5, right, and needed to do this baseline testing, they didn't have access to a lab, right? And so I have to imagine that's only going to become more prevalent as more labs get gobbled up and more folks there aren't the folks to drive, 6 hours to get a sample tested.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious too, trying to figure out how to ask this question. I don't want to frame it as like, what are your top 5 favorite contaminants? But when you think about the things that have your attention or the attention of the water industry, the lab industry, like what's kind of like on the horizon that we need to be paying attention to? There's the big hits like PFAS, but beyond that,
the biggest issue in my lifetime was the overuse of chlorine. No one understood it. Billy Bob, Jimbo, the operator, usually a very good wrench turner, can get stuff done. They mow the lawn, they handle the filter media, they do all kind of things. But I think that in the past you just threw chlorine at it. Well, treating with chlorine creates total trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. And that's a known carcinogen, and I'd say it's been responsible for a lot of cancer in our country. And we're getting a handle on it, but I think it's one of the biggest issues facing water authorities today.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The balance of chlorine addition to creating carcinogens.
Yeah. 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 Anything else on that list?
I mean, PFAS is the flavor of the day. I don't know what, I mean, it's everywhere. We created a, something that cannot be destroyed or altered, and it worked. So it is everywhere. I don't know how we're going to handle that. I don't, I'm not even sure how you remediate it. I know RO will treat it. It's one of the few things that can handle that. Carbon filters aren't bad. But that's, I guess, being 66 almost, that's somebody else's issue.
Yeah.
We hear that so much. I'm retiring. Yeah. That's going to be the issue for the next guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or gal.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah.
But yeah, those are some things that I can think of. Lead, we're getting a handle on lead in this country, and it's improving. And because of companies like 120, we've made it a lot safer for the consumer who most at the time probably didn't know. I'd say now a lot of people are more aware of it, but 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't as well known.
Right.
Yeah. 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 It was just in one place or here and there. And then it became recognized as something that we had to take care of across the country.
Yeah. Exposing them. Yeah. So, we share some fun or funny stories via our Slack from time to time about dealing with customer lab sampling. So Dave, I don't know if you have over the years any funny stories around samples that have been dropped off at your lab, but I have to share my favorite at 120. One I cannot share on the air or probably would be inappropriate. But probably my favorite thing that's gotten returned in a sample kit is we got iced, a Smirnoff Ice. People will write all kinds of mean stuff on the chain of custody, but in terms of like cleverness and like what came back in the sample, and I remember getting a call from someone at the lab saying, we can't analyze this. I'm like, no, we got iced. So
Yeah.
we've got a lot of those funny stories along the way, and your team's been phenomenal partners.
We had a customer years ago. I do login, and this guy was also the helicopter pilot. He'd bring me 4 bottles labeled 31A. I'm like, well, which one is it? And he'd leave. He'd say, I don't know. You figure it out.
You figure it out.
It was like, you know what I mean? You dealt with some crazy, this is where automation would help immensely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Automation. But I will say there is always a human component to that intake process, because you never know exactly, like when you're dealing with human beings, you never know what they're going to put in that bottle or what they're going to write on that chain of custody. And, I really do credit both of our organizations for figuring out a really good process there.
Mm-hmm.
We've really done a good job.
Yeah. 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 I always say people ruin everything. It's the worst, the best and the worst part
Yes.
of doing this is you have to deal with people. And this is where I always empathize with folks, whether they work at utilities or anywhere else. It's like, you have so much pressure coming in, when you have so much, regulations requiring more data to be reported up, more information to be communicated out. It puts a resource strapped human being in charge of running a water utility in a tough spot. Like, you're almost like, no matter which way you go, you're probably gonna fail. And deal with that on some level. Yeah, so that really inspires the next generation to really want to come into this business, right?
Right.
The hours are long, but the pay is low. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Win-win for no one.
Yeah, and it comes back to like being able to create processes that help. You said it really well earlier, that help that person, that water utility worker, focus their efforts on the most meaningful tasks,
That's right.
the high value tasks, and not dealing with the administrative regulatory burdens to the extent that we can take that off their plate.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dave, you're retired now, obviously still very much a subject matter expert, investor in the industry. Anything that you can share with the listeners about what you're excited about, either as an investor or seeing some new technologies on the market, or just the next 10 years in water in general?
I mean, I still have a little bit of ownership in 120. I see the future being water monitoring calendars. You probably heard this from me. If you had a nickel every time you heard it, I'm sure you'd. But I think we as a company, 120 has a big install base. Most of the folks that are using it are probably in and around my age. They don't want to learn another software. I think we're real close to having another, the regulatory component included. I think that'll be game changing. I really do. But I think that's big, and I'm excited about that.
We are too. We are too. Well, great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast, Dave, and sharing a little bit from the Wayback Time Machine and how we all got together. And it's fun. It's fun to go down memory lane and think back to when we were literally stuffing bottles in a box.
Yes, yeah. And the one
in
thing,
an old bank
exactly, in an old bank.
Zionsville, yeah.
The story we didn't get to actually is the story about the creature over your shoulder. How long ago did you mount that?
The digger. That's the we call that the last day buck. I got it on Veterans Day. I didn't even know the season was open that day. My accountant said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm working." She goes, Why aren't you hunting?" I said, "Season's over." She says, "No, they extended it one day." So it was like 2:00. I got up, went out. It was snowing, and at about almost dark, this buck came out and shot with a bow at 42 yards. And he's not the biggest buck I ever got, but he's the most memorable.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. That's amazing.
For all the avid hunters out there, Dave is, if you ever need some inspiration, he's really good at sending you pictures of his conquests.
I've sent you too many, evidently.
That was some of my favorite memories of walking around CWM. Was just like,
I know.
it was just it was a testament to your passions.
Exactly.
But no, I think, all that to say, I think we are incredibly fortunate to, I'm incredibly fortunate to be part of something that Hugh helped get off the ground, and just, really consider you just an incredible collaborator, and lean in with curiosity. And those are some of my favorite people to be around. So,
Thank you.
Thank you
That's very nice of you.
Thank you for joining us today.
It was fun.
Good.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. And for all of you who tuned in, what a treat of a conversation to have. And there's so much that Dave Kohl has his fingerprints on, not just with 120, but with so many other businesses, and people and innovators in this space. And so we thank you for listening in, and can't wait for you to join us next time.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Well, Isaac, I can easily see why he's one of your favorite people. I think he's certainly a humble, successful entrepreneur in our industry that also is an operator and understands the dynamic of water, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I take away from me in that is just a couple of themes about why we started 120 Water from the first place, and that is, operators are retiring. There's not a sufficient funnel, right, or sufficient funnel of folks to replace.
Yeah.
And the need to drive efficiency in the organization. And I think, you kind of sum up those two pieces, and that's just kind of a really important part, I think, about why 120 has been successful, or a successful offering.
It is.
To the marketplace.
It is. And I think, he always was a good gut check on, and a reminder of who our customer is.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding the persona. It's easy to come up with ideas for quote unquote marketing, but it can easily deviate from what's the actual problem of the person who is running the water utility, also mowing the grass, is overwhelmed.
Doing the messiest job.
Yeah. What are we actually bringing to that experience? And so, he's just been an incredible collaborator on this journey, and we're so excited that you got to join us and got to listen in on that conversation with Dave Kohl. Again, follow, share, reach out to us, let us know who you'd like to hear from, and we just love having these conversations with the people who make water work. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Make Water Work podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. We'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. Connect with us on LinkedIn or send us a message. Together, we can make water work for everyone.